have such a unique story. You kind of been all over the world playing hockey, and you kind of share the same story of concussion. So I'm really excited to kind of talk to you today.
Yeah, Joel. Yeah, me too. It was really cool how you reached out, and that was the biggest thing. Not a surprise at this point, but just a really cool thing to see other people reach out. Like, hey, I struggle with that. Tell me more about this, or tell me more about that. That works
For
for
sure.
you. And like, I don't know about you, but I wish that I had a network of community when I was going through it. And
Yeah.
now with everything so virtual and the technology changing, I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
about kind of 2.5 years out from my last concussion and about 4 years out from my really bad one. And it's exactly what you just said is it's completely true. I know the only people I really could talk to when I was going through it was someone that had been through a concussion, whether that be my brother, younger brother, or actually my producer Jake that's listening. But beyond that, yeah, I felt very isolated, and that's exactly right. It's just hard to talk to someone they don't know.
yeah, it can be for sure. But we're trying to break that stigma, right?
Exactly. That's challenging the stigma. That's what we're all about.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So I guess we'll start off. I wanted to ask you, were you aware of the risks of concussion throughout your hockey career? Starting with minor hockey all the way up to professionally, and kind of how has your perception and your education changed since then?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I had no idea what a concussion was.
I think most of us, yeah.
I'll call it the C word. I really don't like using the word concussion,
Mhm.
just because I don't know, it's eerie. So
Oh, it's fair.
I call it C words. Yeah, I mean, growing up, I had no idea what a TBI was, and I actually never played a contact sport until hockey when I
Right.
started in sixth grade. So I had no idea that there was a risk involved with playing a contact sport. Like I would see football on TV or hockey on TV, and I was like, "Oh, those are big hits."
Right.
Or
But
if
you know the
someone
risk.
got hurt, I it didn't really click because I never experienced it. You never know how bad an injury is until you experience
Until you
it.
get it, for
So
sure.
for me, it was one of those situations where I had a rude awakening into how bad an injury could be. And of all injuries, I think a brain injury is one of the worst to get,
Yeah.
from my experiences. And so, yeah, from an early on point in my life, after I got my first one, my dad did a ton of research, just Googling stuff, talking to local doctors, and everyone was saying the same story, like, stay at home, rest,
Rest. Yeah.
watch the TV, just hang out, just like you're sick at home as a kid with the flu.
Mhm.
Treat it like that. Maybe your mom makes you chicken noodle soup and you just hang out. Your friends come over and visit you, bring you cookies, get well soon sign.
Right.
And that was basically my life for the first couple weeks after my first traumatic brain injury. It wasn't till later when we kind of realize how bad it can get, after more piled up.
Yeah.
My dad was really cautious, though. Our doctor said, "Hey, you can go back to play in 2 weeks." And my first injury, I was unconscious for about 3 minutes. So like it was pretty bad. And thankfully, my dad had me sit out for a whole month. And I think if I didn't sit out that whole month, my PCS would have started a lot sooner.
Lots, yeah, for sure.
And so, although I did experience PCS, I give credit to my dad. Our first concussion experience, and he was like, "Hey, let's be really careful here. You're only in sixth grade. You got a whole bunch of life to live." Um, Joel, really, since then, I feel like the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know that whole song and dance, right? But
Mhm.
it's just been really interesting to talk with neurologists, specifically one in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that I've been working with, Amy Custer at Tree Orthopedics. Her work is incredible, and she's always bouncing ideas off of me, being someone that has experienced them and our work closely the last 5 years or so together. So I mean, it's growing. My experience is growing, but I'm no professional by any sense. I just kind of know what I've experienced and then go from there.
No, for sure. And I think it's so great that you're able to tell your story, and you brought up the idea that your dad was able to help you through that. And that's something that we've talked about with a couple of our guests on this podcast is the idea that not everyone has the right support system in place when they're dealing with the concussion. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little about support systems and the importance of dealing with that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's so important. I think support systems now more than ever too, right? Just having that availability to connect with people on the phone or on a social media platform, but also the vulnerability with your family is really important. Family is really important to me too, and I'm sure it is for everyone else. But that support system was everything to me. My parents, they gave up so much for me to pursue hockey. We literally moved from Colorado to Minnesota to try to play hockey in Minnesota at, like, a big high school there, and it worked.
The
But
state of hockey, yeah.
yeah, the state of hockey. So they, from a young age, kind of just tried to pour into me to say, hey, we support you. But it wasn't always the support I wanted, right? Like when I got injuries, when I had my TBIs, they were trying to have me sit out extra time and having me do these things I didn't want to do, like go see extra doctors and drive 4 hours away to see a special doctor, or go
Right.
fly to another state to see another doctor. I didn't want to do that in middle school or high school. Like I wanted to hang out with my friends and just like
Like
go to
any kid, of
school.
course.
Yeah. I'd be pulled out of school for weeks at a time. And I was like, how am I supposed to be in school and learn this and also just be social if I'm not there? So, but I learned that the support system was huge for me. Honestly, a lot of the time we think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And the fact is we just can't.
Yeah.
And, for me, that was a struggle in my identity throughout high school, was thinking that I can do it. I'm a grown up 15, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old who thinks that the whole world's in front of me, right? Like I was trying to get on a good junior team and then hopefully play college hockey. And I was thinking, I can do this myself. I've
Right.
gotten myself here. I can do it myself. And the whole time I'm dealing with depression. I can't remember where I'm walking around when I'm in my high school. I have all these problems. And my parents are like, hey, there's nothing wrong with getting help, Tyler. Like if you need help in school, just because you have someone to like walk you to your class, that's nothing to be ashamed about.
Nothing to be ashamed
You
of, for
know,
sure.
so those are the little reminders that my parents like poured into me, just to help me out. And I realized, you know what? My friends aren't going to think less of me. And if they do, then they're not really my friends. And
Exactly. They're not true
I
friends.
got to look long term here, because I feel like as an athlete or as a young man or young woman, you're always so center focused on what's next, what's next, what's next. You don't really look at the big picture. You always zoomed in. Like analogy I like to use. Have you ever seen like a wildlife photographer? They
Yeah.
have like these huge lenses, right? And it's just to zoom in on a really narrow area, like
Right.
seeing a bird flapping its wings or a lion yawn, and you see like their big tongue and their jaw, like a really zoomed in picture. And I feel like we walk around with this telephoto lens, only zoomed in on one little picture. And realistically, we have to change to a wide angle lens, start seeing more what's around us, and start to realize, hey, there's a lot more going on. And, you know, I need to get to the bottom of this.
For sure. And that's so true in sports, and especially in hockey. One of the main reasons I wanted to start this podcast was, I wanted to help people that were dealing with concussions, but I more wanted to reach people indirectly that are related to those people, whether that be exactly like you said, a friend, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a teacher, a boss, someone that just doesn't see the big picture, and to them just, might seem like, oh, this person is just faking it, or they're just, pushing along with life, but they don't realize what's going on inside their head is truly hell.
Yeah, yeah, really. And that's the other thing too, is like you talk about faking it. Like I think of that more as a sense of, we always try to fake not having one, right?
Of course.
Because the last thing you want is someone to know that you have a concussion and that you're like
People
ineligible
can
to
always know. Like
play.
I always
Yeah,
get it from my friends or from my old teammates when I would go watch. Like they know.
yeah, walking zombies out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's and on the related topic, I'm curious, both on and off the ice, how do they impact your life still today?
Yeah, I mean, today is a lot different than in that journey beforehand. I mean,
Mhm.
I kind of emailed you some stuff before, but for the listeners, like I had a series of concussions every year from 2006 to 2010 or 11. And it was weird because every concussion of that year was in the same month and of the same week
As
every year.
weird,
And
crazy
so
cadence.
it was super weird. Our family, we started calling it concussion week, and we would make jokes like, all right, Tyler, wear your helmet to school. And then like random things happened. The weird thing is they all didn't happen at hockey. There was only, I think, a couple there's only like 3 that really happened at hockey. Another one was like I got into a fight in middle school, and like that gave me one. And then like um I was doing a gym workout, and we were right before the state tournament in high school, like, Minnesota State high school
Oh,
tournament.
it's a massive. Yeah.
Pretty cool. And our team's about to go. And right before we go, we're doing a circuit workout in the weight room. And one of my circuits I was at, and I was doing push-ups into like planks or something. And we're kind of close to the bench area. And one of my teammates was clearing the rack and kind of like tripped when he held one of the plates, and
Oh.
like fell back, and the back of the plate like smoked my head when I was doing push-ups. So like I was knocked out bleeding
Oh, out cold.
in the weight room. So like it was just a whole bunch of random things every year. I mean, obviously that one was in the spring, so that wasn't during the concussion week, but it was just pretty scary thinking, oh my gosh, when is this going to end?
It's gonna
And
end.
it finally
Yeah.
ended in 2011. And then my roommate, I had a friend that was living with me to play hockey in Minnesota. So he was living with me at my house, at my parents' house, and he ended up getting it that week. So I was like, dude, I'm bad luck.
Cursed.
Yeah, cursed. But yeah, I mean, basically my everyday life was pretty tough, man. Like kind of, like I said, false sense of identity, living, not really knowing who I am and where my life is going to go. Kids had a
Sure.
direction, right? Like someone wanted to play golf at Dartmouth, another wanted to be a writer at Columbia. I was like, do I even want to play hockey? What's the point of living? I have so many questions that aren't being answered. Does
A
God
lot of
exist?
second guessing for sure.
Everything. And then you mix in, you know, the confusion, the symptoms of your concussions, the headaches, constant headaches, sensitivities to light, sounds. All of that for me was just absolutely horrible. It got to the point where I got super depressed and trying to fill that hole with drinking and other things that was not healthy for me at all. And it got me into some trouble. And I just remember thinking like, is this ever going to stop? I had no answer, and I was
Yeah.
just
Uh,
searching for it. And we would go to specialist after specialist, and they're all saying, "Yeah, rest, rest, rest." And I just thought, this is absolutely horrible. So fast forward a little bit, right about my college days, I was a freshman after playing junior, so I wasn't a true freshman. So it was 2014, my freshman year. And I had a shoulder and hernia operation my freshman year and redshirted.
mhm.
Um, and so I went into the doctor's office in Minnesota, and I saw like a pamphlet for a neurologist there, Amy Custer, who I referenced earlier. And it was all about concussions. So I was like, this is incredible. She's just down the hall. After my checkup with my shoulder and my
Go
hernia, I
check it
should
out. Yeah.
hobble down the hall. And she was like, right in between patients, and she had a couple minutes, and she's like, yeah, we'll get you in here right away. And it was incredible. I still had all these symptoms, all these problems. Not saying I'm completely symptom free now, but she's really helped me since 2014 really progress. And so symptomatically, and what concussions look like for me day to day now is a lot more advocacy, and then sticking with what I know works for me to
Right.
fight off my symptoms when I have them.
Which is very
uh,
important because I do the same thing.
it's incredible, right? And then like, Joel, too, once you get in the rhythm of what works for you, you kind of stick with it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Nope.
And what works for you may not work for me, and vice versa. But it's all about exploring what works for you, getting the right help to figure that out, talking with the professionals, and then maybe playing with them a little bit, saying, okay, I tried this. What about doing this and this, combining them and seeing,
Right.
making your own recipe, so to speak.
No, I think that's and you brought up the topic, it's so important. Concussion recovery is not a template. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I think we've had this conversation with now the 10 people I've interviewed, and it's all the same thing. What worked for them has been slightly different, or a new type of therapy that I've never heard of. And for me, same story. I saw 5 or 6 different specialists and same things: rest, rest, rest. And it wasn't until I was connected with my osteopath where I found out that I had a whole bunch of other problems in my neck, in my back, in my spine, and just things that I didn't even know existed beyond my concussion. And it was the first
Yeah.
person I felt that was on my side. It made such a huge difference.
No way. That is crazy. That's awesome to hear that too, because I mean, I hate to say this, and I got to be careful what I say, but usually going to a specific specialist may not always be the right answer. Sometimes
Sure.
it takes going to see other people, chiropractors or dietitians, before you start to realize things are linked without you even knowing them, right? Like, we're not experts on anatomy,
No, no.
uh, and the experts who are around and available, like seeing out those people, it can be incredible. It can be the difference between symptoms dramatically decreasing overnight over a month of, or over the span of like several months, right?
Right.
It's
I'm
pretty.
curious if you can explain a little more about the work that you do. It's a sports neuropsychologist, right?
Yep, yeah,
Yeah, I was
exactly.
wondering if you can explain a little more about that.
Yeah, so just with Amy's work, or the things that I've done with her, you mean?
Yeah, both. Just about what the stuff that's helped you and the work that you've done with her.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So Amy came to me, proposing like this really cool system of an active recovery, like so many others are getting now, which is really important.
Very
And
important.
so for me, it was, kind of looking at assessing where my strengths are and where my problems still are, cognitively. And we
Right.
saw like a vestibular split in my right eye. So the concussions led to a problem with my eyes seeing and portraying where things actually are in a room or moving. And as a defenseman, when I was playing, I'm always
You're always
head
scanning.
checking,
Always,
right?
yeah.
I'm always head checking. And we realized that when I'd be head checking on the ice, it led to why I would be like having these whiteout spells. I'd
You're
be
always
skating,
shifting your head. Yeah.
literally, Joel, I'd be having the puck on my stick, like skating it up, looking to pass it, and all I would see is white. And like I was telling her this, and she's like, well, it's because of this vestibular split that you have when you're scanning the ice and looking really rapidly around. And so we started doing exercises specifically to target that split, vestibularly for me. So
Right.
she had these really cool things, like devices that I would stick onto my wall. And it was like a string, and I'd hold it out, and then I would like check it, and then I would like let it spin. There's just a whole bunch of really cool things like that. And then also we got into breath work and meditation, if you will. I think everyone kind of has a different like description for or definition for meditation, but for
Yeah.
me it was really just sitting in my breath, listening to different wavelengths of music, so alpha, beta, gamma, theta waves, and then just sitting there breathing and letting my mind just be still and just work on my breath.
Which is
uh,
mindfulness, which is a great practice. I actually do practice a lot of mindfulness, and yoga actually was a big thing that ended up getting me back on track when I need to get active, exactly like you said.
that's awesome. So that led to pursuing yoga. For that, I did yoga before as like cross training for flexibility. But then I decided to get deep into it. So I went and got 500 hours of yoga teacher training. I
Wow,
did two different 25-hour teacher trainings. And in those teacher trainings, I learned so much more about the anatomy,
so much.
and physiology. And I studied exercise science in university. So I was able to kind of like use that as well. But it was really interesting because I started to like play off of what Amy was telling me to do. So she would
Right.
tell me to try this and this, and then I would discover something about my own anatomy or my own emotional thought process by reading what I would journal,
Right.
because I would journal a lot and write poetry too. And then I would combine those things and almost like try to cook up something and see if it worked. And then I would get back to Amy and be like, hey, this, and this worked, and this didn't at all. So she's like,
It's
okay,
always
try
a
that
learning
out.
experience. Yeah.
So it was a really cool process of give and take, yin and yang, over a couple years. And throughout this time, I was not playing hockey just because it was, you know, the number of concussions I had, we had no idea.
Right.
We can't honestly say how many I've had. So we were just saying, hey, precaution, safety wise, we're looking at keeping your brain healthy. I just turned 27 last month, and it's like this was going on. I was 23, and they're like, Amy was saying, hey, we want to make sure you have a life with your
Rest of
children,
your
a
life.
life with your
Sure.
wife. Like, hockey's not everything here.
Not everything. And again, that's another, like for me as someone, I never played professionally, but hockey like, is absolutely everything for me. And getting my last concussion, like it took me several months of just going through hell of realizing, why can't I give up the sport? And it wasn't actually until I actually took a yoga class with a doctor who had concussions, and it was a specific class for
Wow.
people with concussions. So not only was I like hesitant about trying yoga, but this was a person that had been through a concussion and knew what I had been through. So like we go to the studio, the lights would be dimmed, there'd be breaks all the time, and it really was huge for me.
That's incredible. So there's a company you should check out. It's called Love Your Brain
Love your brain.
Foundation,
Yeah.
LYB. Um, it was started by an Olympic snowboarder and his brother, and they were, athletes who had really bad TBIs. And so they started this Love Your Brain Foundation, and it's all around like yoga and meditation and trauma training around yoga with
Right.
TBI people. It's really cool. So using yoga as a way to kind of help that recovery process and to kind of dial back the symptoms that you receive from your TBIs. I
No,
think you
it's
might
really
be
interesting.
interested in it.
I'm
Check
gonna
it
check it
out.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They're
So,
amazing
so
people.
in terms of your hockey career, you played in the States, you played in Canada, you played professionally in Germany. So I'm just curious, what the differences in hockey culture is, and if anything, is there a difference in how concussions are dealt with?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, Hockey Canada is incredible. Just like USA Hockey,
Yeah,
they are on top of it. When I was living in Canada, they were always talking to us players when I was in junior about concussions and like even just being a good steward in your community. And um, it was really cool just to see how the country of Canada like really supports hockey and
yeah,
how influent Hockey Canada is on its players. So I really enjoyed playing in Canada. I didn't have any TBIs when I was there, but I had some teammates that had them, and they were treated exceptionally well. Like they didn't try to play through it. They sat out the proper time. I was really, really impressed. So that was really cool to see. Not saying USA Hockey doesn't do that, because they do, but I felt like the dialogue in Canada was more open, to be honest.
right.
And then I don't know who to credit that to. If it's like, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Seems more of
Uh,
just an emphasis on safety. I know, like in USA Hockey, there's hitting at a younger age.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. So that was really cool. Germany, yeah, being able to play pro here in North America and Germany was incredible. The style of hockey is completely different, as you may expect,
For sure, much
knowing
different.
about hockey. So, but when it comes to injury and concussions, it's also quite different. Obviously everything's in a different language,
Yeah,
but just the way that the healthcare system works there, the process is much different. And I feel like we have our athletic trainers here in North America, they have them there too. But I feel like the athletic trainers in Europe are kind of the one shop fix all. Like to actually go to the hospital, it doesn't really occur in Europe unless you have like a life threatening injury
right.
or like a broken bone. But like your trainers in North America can stitch you up. Like I've had that on the bench, but in Europe, like you have a CT scan in the locker room. I haven't really seen that in North America. I've played in like AHL buildings and I haven't seen those in North America.
Right.
So I think Europe has fixed up their programs to have a mini hospital at the rinks, which is kind of cool depending on where you're playing. Obviously, some of the older rinks don't have that because they're almost like barn style
Yeah, they're really old
AVRs.
school.
But the stigma on discussion, it's there. It's on the upcoming too, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Everyone's really aware. But the other thing you have to think about is Europe is so much more relaxed. Like the drive in society and culture in North America, specifically the United States, is go, 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 busy,
Right.
busy, busy. Europe, they've got it figured out thousands of years before America was even born. So I feel like their stigma is really relaxed in the more sense of like, if you're hurt, take the time you need. We'll send you off here and you can get as much help as you need. The season's a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's about half short.
So that's the sad thing is you miss more hockey in comparison, but they don't really rush you back so
which is
much.
important,
Yeah.
very
So
important.
I haven't had a TBI in Europe, but I've had some teammates who've had them. I've seen some teammates play through them, and I obviously was like, "Hey, let's talk about this." And then I've had teammates that went and got help. So I think it's a double-edged sword, just like here. I think it's more so depending on the player and where they're at in their career too. It's just a hard thing all around. And at the end of the day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
No, for sure. On a related topic, you think that hockey players or just athletes in general face an identity crisis when they do decide to retire, and kind of how are some of the ways that you deal with that in your own life?
Well, it's a really good question. Just like concussions, these identity, I don't want to say problems, but these identity topics need to be discussed from a young age, right?
Right away.
I mean, though they don't have to find their identity at a young age, they can have an idea of what identity means to
Right, what it
them
is.
and start to develop it in their own thoughts. As an athlete myself and retiring this year, like at the end of 2020 during COVID, it hasn't been that hard for me actually. I miss being at the rink with the guys the most.
For sure.
Just
Same.
that schedule of being there first thing in the morning and stretching and then hopping on the ice, doing a workout with the boys, the bus rides or the plane rides.
It's like a second home almost.
Oh, it is for sure. For some guys, it's their only home, right?
Yeah.
But the change for me hasn't been too hard. I got really lucky when I had this identity crisis in 2014 when I had my shoulder, right before my shoulder and hernia operation. When I was 20 years old, I found faith in God. So I'm a really strong Christian believer. And that for me was not only the answer to my identity crisis, but full on understanding of who I am
Who
and
you
what
are.
that
Yeah.
means to be alive. And that was the question that I was wondering my entire life, even before concussions. Concussions just really helped crack open that egg.
Right.
So for me lately, just since 2014, the last 7 years, it's just been exploring my faith deeper and getting more involved in my local community and church, and that has really honestly saved my life from alcohol abuse and drug abuse. Just trying to be clean and do the right things, and then also just focus who I am, who God calls me to be, using like the Bible as a reference for that, and then accountability,
Hmm.
friends and stuff like that. So it's been easier for me on the backside of hockey. Also, like I started a business when I was playing, doing like freelance photo and video because I really love to travel, and you're going
Yeah.
to all these cool places for hockey. So I was thinking, well, I really love traveling and I really love storytelling. So maybe I'll just start like taking pictures and writing in my off seasons or when I travel for hockey. And it blew up. And now I have this amazing opportunity to pour into my business that I started several years ago full time
Do it
on
full
the
time.
backside of hockey. So it's pretty amazing. And my wife is really supportive of it, which is incredible. And so now I have this thing that was hockey, right? Some people idolize it. I used it as a tool
Yep.
to learn more about myself and grow as an individual, and then also to share the gospel. Um, because there's a lot of guys in the room that are searching for that identity and they're trying to fill it with other things. And maybe they're hurt with a concussion too. And if I can use my story to help them, if God can save me, he can save anyone. Trust me.
And I'll add, there are probably a lot of the same people in that room who don't understand why maybe they need to give it up, but really should be giving it up. And that's again another reason why I want to have these conversations.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. So just yeah, being able to identify why you're on earth, and hockey's not the reason. It can
No,
be part of the reason, but it's not the reason. And there's no problem with searching and struggling in that. It should be a roller coaster because as soon as if it wasn't a roller coaster and you didn't have to struggle to find identity, you would not feel fulfilled,
no, it
right? If you started hockey as a peewee and you were the captain in the NHL winning the Stanley Cup your following year as a Bantam, first year Bantam, you'd be like, okay, now what?
That's
Right?
why a lot of like, young professional athletes, if they experience success at the beginning of their career, they sometimes get a little lost towards the middle and end of their career and then realize what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I've been really blessed on the other side of hockey to just embrace where I am in my time and dive into something else, because
No,
I
that's
had hockey
great.
and now I have something that I can do just as much and put just as much heart and energy into. And I can use the things I learned in hockey to feed this other side of me now that is pursuing storytelling. And, who
Great.
knows, maybe I get to do that with hockey. Maybe I can do some photo or video with hockey in some capacity later. But
And you think, I've also asked this question to everyone, you think knowing what you know now and the work and the advocacy that you do, would you go through the same hockey career that you did?
absolutely, I would go through every dark minute of my life, every dark second of my life again. It was everything that I, Tyler Brower, needed to learn what I needed to learn and to grow and to step up the way I needed to grow and step up to bring me here today and to help the people through my own experiences for sure.
No, it's really great. And I really think you have such a great mindset and just talking to you, like you just think you're really doing some very good work. I wanted to
Yeah,
ask you just one last question. What's like the one piece of advice you could give out there to someone that's struggling with concussion?
man, I feel like obviously you thinking of this question, there's so much we could say,
You could say,
right?
yeah, there's hundreds of things you could say. That's why I like to end with it because it's very open.
Oh man, it almost sounds cliche, honestly, but it is just so true. Saying that you're not alone um, is over the top true. Like you really aren't. Yet, I would really love to emphasize and put an exclamation mark on um, kind of on the whispered the whispered part of this whole story is that you need to tell someone. You need to tell someone
Have
because you're not alone, but no one knows that you're not alone until you talk about it, right? Because so much of the time we're saying, like I can tell someone, hey, you're not alone. And so many people at when I was starting to get help were like, oh, you're not alone. And I was realizing that, well, I'm sure they're saying that, but do they mean it? Like, I don't know their story. And then I learned their story. I'm like, okay, they really have been
they
through what
really
I've
mean
been
it?
through.
Mhm.
How can I find more people who are like me? And then I started to talk about it and ask questions and bring it up myself and telling people vulnerably, like, hey, I really struggle with depression right now. Or like, hey, I actually have been playing concussed coach for the last year and a half of my life, and I need someone to help me around my school because I don't even remember my lab mate in chemistry class. Like, just talking about it and sharing something. You don't have to go all out and spill your whole life and all your struggles, but just like trying to just have that bravery for one sentence bravery and say, I need help. I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. That is so key. And that will save your life. For some people, that will save their life.
And I'll add, it doesn't make you weak to ask for help. I know for my own sake, uh, for a while it was so alienated to even talk to anyone else that had not been through a concussion. I used to just go watch my men's league hockey team play because I was the team captain. I used to bring the water bottles and the pucks, and I used to just want to go just because I loved being in the rink and smelling the air. And every week I would go and get the same questions from the same 4 or 5 guys. Hey, you look fine. Put on your equipment. Get out here. And like it got to the point where I had to stop going, and that was so crushing for me. But it wasn't until I was able to like communicate to these people, like, what was wrong and what I was going through, where they understood. They stopped asking those questions. And really, there's so much what you just said was true in my story.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like you were very strong in your understanding there, like because peer pressure, though they're not trying to peer pressure you into playing, they just want you to play because they like playing with you
Of course.
and they need you on the ice, right?
But in my
So
mind, like all I want to do is play, right?
yeah.
So it's
And
a
it's
false
hard.
sense of like they think they're helping, but they're really not.
It's really hard when you get your teammates saying, "Hey, like, come on, we need you," or your coach even, or the trainer kind of looks the other way a little bit. Not saying that's happened to me, but
It does
um,
happen. Yeah,
it happens more than you know. And I think that's changing now because trainers are incredible people. They're just there to help you and help the team. But I think what you said is really bold in the sense of like, yeah, what you need to get better, and you're not going to let anything step in the way of that, because if you ruin that opportunity, that could be the end of your career.
for sure. And like, for me, and it sounds like for you, finding your voice was really the kind of turning point. And it's really great to be able to talk to you and have these conversations. And I love to
Incredible.
speak with you again. I'm actually working on doing kind of a group discussion with a couple of the guests where it's focused strictly on concussions in hockey. So if you do want to participate, we'd love to have you as part of
Oh,
that.
that'd be an honor. It'd be an honor.
That's great. So yeah, I'll let you know about more of the details of that. And really, Tyler, thank you so much for sharing your story. And really, it was so great to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, this is just so important to me, and it should be more important to everyone else too. So the more you can do this, the better. And guys are lucky to have you bringing people on and to share awareness like this. This is incredible.
Thank you so much. And again, yeah, look forward to speaking in the near future.
Yeah, you too, Joel.
All right, have a good one.
See ya.